setting tonight, or today I should say. I'm actually in my car. So it got a little noisy in the house, and it was actually raining earlier. So I decided it would be a smart idea to film in my car, not only to get some quiet, but also because I thought it would be nice ambiance with the rain. But unfortunately, the rain decided to stop the minute I step outside. So anyways, hopefully the rain will come back during the video, but if not, at least I tried. But tonight's video is going to be something a bit different. It is going to be a purely whispering video. So if this isn't necessarily what you're into as far as ASMR triggers are concerned, don't even worry about it. There's going to be a lot more triggers on my channel to come. I just like to experiment with different types of videos, so I've been wanting to do this video for a long time. But basically what we're going to be doing tonight is reading from the r/Let's Not Meet. The r/Let's Not Meet is basically a forum on Reddit where people submit stories of creepy / scary encounters with other people in this world who can range from anywhere being like a mildly discomforting and like uncomfortable interaction to like literally somebody escaping with their lives from harm from somebody. So it's a super interesting subreddit. If you are on Reddit, I highly recommend that you guys follow that subreddit if you're into creepy, spooky, kind of like eerie, like real life stories or real world stories. They're supposed to be real world stories, but who's to say if people are making them up or not? So I went ahead and handpicked a couple of stories that I saw on the subreddit so we can read together tonight. But I hope you guys enjoy the video, so let's dive on in. So, let's get into the stories, you guys. Okay guys, so the first story is titled, "My brother saw a ghost as a kid. 2 decades later, I realized what he actually saw." Here we go. "I was about 7 years old, my brother about 10. It was well past our bedtime when our mom woke up off the couch to put us to bed. Our dad worked construction out of town back then, so it was often just us three at the house for weeks at a time. Up the stairs and to the immediate right was our parents' bedroom. Going left put you in the middle of a hallway. Taking another left down that hallway led to my brother's room. The opposite end was my room, which was also across the hall from our upstairs bathroom. At either end of the hallway are window doors we always kept locked and rarely used. The door on my end led to a balcony overlooking our front yard, and the door on my brother's end opened to our back porch. The house kinda leans into a small hill, quote unquote. My brother and mom both had a habit of waking up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. I only knew this because I was always a light sleeper and they just couldn't help flushing with the door wide open. This night, however, my brother stopped on his way to his room and came back towards the bathroom. He said, 'I'm gonna try to pee before I go to bed. The past few nights, I've been too afraid to walk to the bathroom. I keep seeing a man wearing stripes. I keep seeing a man wearing stripes at the end of the hallway.' No, ma'am. I don't know if my mom wrote it off as my brother telling ghost stories to try to scare me, or if she was already half asleep and didn't catch it, but she didn't react at all to my brother's confession. I, on the other hand, was terrified by it. The fear of seeing a ghost like that at the end of the hallway, or through the windows is the reason I started running from the stairs to my bedroom at night." That reminds me of me. "Years later, when I was about 18, my mom and I were having a conversation in her car about a dog we had for a very short time when I was little. We were sharing stories about Max's tendency towards destroying my shoes and other unruly behaviors when my mom blurted out, "Hey, do you remember that time I opened the front door for the cops and Max ran inside the kitchen and started tearing open that big bag of dog food we had?" This really caught me by surprise because in all the years I lived in that house, we never once called the cops. I asked her what she was talking about, and she looked equally surprised, as if she had just revealed something by accident. She said, "Oh, that's right. I never told you because you were too young at the time. One night I woke up hearing noises outside my window, and when I looked, I saw a man staring into my bedroom. Oh, no. Ugh." She went on to describe how turning on the lights caused him to take off running and how she grabbed my dad's pistol before calling the cops. Yes, ma'am. She said, "I can't remember all the details I gave them when they showed up. Tall, white male, wearing a striped shirt and jeans. Short, dark hair, something like that. They said it matched the description of a man they were looking for in the area. It turns out he had escaped from jail on a murder charge." Oh no. Now I know it sounds so obvious hearing those two stories back to back, but it wasn't until a few years ago, in my mid-20s, that I pieced together that my brother had unknowingly warned us about a murderer who spent multiple nights casing our home. See, this is one of my absolute biggest fears, you guys. Is like just chilling in my room or in my house, like a part of my house at night, and like walking past a window and like seeing someone standing on the other end of the window just staring into my house or like staring at me. Ugh. No. That is so freaky. I think a lot of people can agree that the idea of like somebody potentially stalking your home and like the threat of someone breaking into your home with you in it is just so incredibly terrifying. My goodness, I am so happy that that guy never found a way into their house and that they were able to catch him because, yeah, hard pass. On to the next story, guys. So this one is titled, "What Was She Planning to Do to Me?" Girl, if I know. One time I went to the bar with one of my friends. I had just turned 21, so I hadn't been to many bars up to that point. My friend was drinking on the way to the bar, so he was already pretty drunk when we got there. When I sat at the bar, a cute girl came and talked to me and my friend. She said her name was Candace, and I noticed that she had really, really bright red hair. I assumed she dyed it. It was pretty, but unnatural. Anyways, this girl was flirting with me and my friend. She could tell my friend was already very drunk. To be honest, I played along like I was drunk already too, since it seemed to be working for my friend. I didn't know if she was just trying to get free drinks, so I told her we didn't have much money. She offered to buy us drinks. She kept buying us drinks, and I started to get confused as to who she liked between me and my friend. My friend went to the bathroom. Before he came back, he was kicked out by the bouncers. He was too drunk. Candace and I went outside with him. She kept telling him to go home with her. He was so out of it, he could barely answer her. Dang. I told her he was too drunk and that I couldn't let him go anywhere. I didn't want him to wake up hungover in some random house with no car and no idea what happened. Candace kept pushing in. She said that she would take care of him, but I told her no because I had to stay with him. I was more sober than him, and he was my responsibility. I told her the only way he was going anywhere was if I tagged along. I assumed she thought that I was jealous or C-blocking him, but he could barely stand and lost interest in Candace already at that point. She immediately started flirting with me and offered to get my friend a taxi to drive him home and said we could go to her place alone. At this point, I had a few drinks and I was pretty buzzed, so I agreed. We took my friend to the taxi and walked her. We took I slightly stumbled on the way to her car. She said, "Wow, you're pretty drunk, huh?" She was smiling, and she held onto my arm. "Yeah," I said. I don't know why, but I just felt slightly shy and anxious. Everything was just happening too easy for me, so I felt uneasy. We got in her car and we drove down the street. She said, "Want to stop at the liquor store and get some more to drink? I'll buy it so we don't have to worry about paying." So you don't have to worry about paying, she offered. I didn't want to drink any more than I already did. I was already buzzed and wanted to be able to carry myself throughout the rest of the night. Sometimes I made myself look stupid when I'm drunk, so I didn't want to ruin everything with Candace more than I already did earlier when she was with my friend and he was too drunk. I told her I was already drunk enough, but she insisted. I didn't want to seem lame, so I told her to get me a pint of liquor with some apple juice to chase it. She went in the store and came out with a lot more than just a pint. I assumed she wanted to drink more also, and that's why she got a fifth instead of a pint. On the car ride, we passed the bottle back and forth, and she took tiny sips. I tried to take tiny sips, but she kept passing me the bottle and telling me to drink. Drinking and driving already, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I somehow managed to drink all of my apple juice and pretend to drink the bottle by spitting the liquor in the apple juice bottle. Oh, that's actually really smart. I tossed the apple juice bottle full of liquor out the window before she saw it. I didn't want her to know I was acting drunker than she already believed I was. I didn't want her to know I was acting drunker than I was. She actually believed I was sloppy drunk when I was simply buzzed. I took a couple more sips of liquor and finished the bottle. Throughout the car ride, I called her the wrong name a couple of times to get a reaction out of her. She didn't react to it. She just kept letting me call her Carla without correcting me. For some reason, I thought she lied to me about her name initially. That's weird. We drove to her house. I pretended to trip and stumble into her front door. She helped me walk inside by holding me up. She opened her front door, which was unlocked. We walked in her house. She closed the front door and then locked it. I thought that was strange, but assumed she didn't want anyone walking in on us. I told her that I had to use the bathroom. I walked into her bathroom, locked the door, and looked in the mirror. I just felt strange. I felt like something was off. I felt myself becoming more drunk from finishing the bottle earlier. I turned on the sink to make noise and made myself puke up the liquor I drank. I flushed and went to the sink and started drinking the tap water out of my hands to sober up. I just didn't want to be drunk, but I still wanted to hook up with Candace, so I wanted to pretend to be drunk. Okay, kind of a scumbag. Jeez. Where is this going? Are they both like frauds? Okay. I turned off the sink and I could hear her talking to someone. I heard, "He's drunk as heck. He can barely stand up. You do it." Who was she talking to? And do what? I walked out of the bathroom and into the living room. The moment I stepped into the living room, I saw her walking into another room. All I could see was the back of her head and strange, very bright hair go into another room. I didn't see her face or anything. I just saw her kind of walk fast into the room. The living room was pretty dark. "Hey, where you going?" I said. I slurred like I was drunk. She walked back into the dark living room and up to me. "Let's go in my room," she said. I looked at her bright red hair and then into her eyes. They were different. Her face was different. It was another girl with the same hair. That's when I realized it was another girl with the same wig on. It was a wig the whole time. Oh my gosh. She had changed it with the girl from earlier for whatever reason. My heart felt like it stopped, but I tried to look like I had no idea it was a different girl. I kind of smiled at her and told her I just needed to use the bathroom one more time and told her sorry I was so drunk. She said, "It's fine, just hurry up in there." I went into the bathroom and locked the door. I heard her whisper something to someone again this time, and I think I heard a male voice whisper back. I honestly didn't concentrate on listening to exactly what she said. Something sketchy was going on, and I had to get out of that house. I opened the bathroom window and jumped straight out of it and ran faster than I have ever ran in my life. I didn't look behind myself or anything. I just ran through the backyard, jumped the fence, ran through someone else's backyard, hit a road, and ran towards the main road. I kept running down the main road until I saw a 24-hour convenience store. I ran into the store and stood straight at the front of the store, in front of the camera. I called a taxi and went home. Oh my gosh. I tried to think what happened that night. What was she or they planning that night? Why did she tell me a fake name? Why was she trying to get my friend and I so drunk? I thought maybe a robbery, but she kept spending money on us. She kept buying us drinks and even paid for my friend's taxi cab. And mostly, why did she wear a wig that she gave to another girl to wear? Who was she talking to? What did it mean? And what was in that room they tried to lure me into? And then this is an edit that they added at the end of the story. The next day after this incident, I went back to the house with a couple of friends to see just what was going on. Nobody was there. No cars, no people, nothing. Just an empty house. I ended up finding out that the house was a summer rental, and whoever those people were, they broke into that house and used it only for that night and never came back. Y'all, this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Like, ugh, that is really freaking creepy. I know that, like, as a woman and my fellow women out there, usually, like, you hear a lot of stories about women going to, like, bars or clubs or any social area and just, like, being afraid that they're gonna get, like, drugged or something and, like, taken advantage of. But you guys, this happens. This can happen to anybody. Anybody. Male, female, doesn't matter. Like, if somebody wants to do you harm, they absolutely will. So, regardless of if you're a guy, if you're a girl, it doesn't matter. Wherever you go, be so careful, and never ditch your friends either. Like, never ditch your friends. Hello. Yeah. That was a crazy story. On to the next. Okay, so this one's titled, Someone Broke Into My House and Tried to Find Me. Okay, here we go. A few years ago, I was renting a house in Northern California. The neighborhood was just outside the suburbs. It seemed like the perfect balance of having space and having nice neighbors close enough not to feel isolated. The area had no street lights, so it was very dark at night, especially if there were clouds blocking the moonlight. It didn't bother me though. It made my little house feel even more quaint on dark nights. I got home from work one day in midwinter. It was a cloudy night, so pulling up to my house, I saw only what my headlights and front porch light illuminated. When I got out of my car, I caught a whiff of cigarette smoke. That was odd, as I never smelled that before around that house. I didn't see anyone nearby, so I ignored it and went inside. I had just got off a shift with a few hours of overtime, so I felt pretty tired. Even though it wasn't even 7 yet, I decided to take a shower and call it a night. I woke up sometime later, sure that I had heard a noise inside my house. I wasn't worried right away because my friend would sometimes stop by to use my shower after work on his way to night classes. I even gave him a spare key so he could just stop by even if I wasn't home. Dang, that's a nice friend. He would always text me to let me know beforehand though, and I hadn't heard my phone go off. Uh-oh. I reached over to my bedside table and picked up my cell phone to see if my friend had sent me a text. The bright light from my phone screen and number pad blinded me. These were the days before phones had a light sensor that would dim the screen in the dark, and this particular phone was so bright I could use it as a flashlight. Through squinted eyes, I could make out that it was 9-something, but I couldn't tell if I had an unread text or not. I set my phone aside and called my friend's name. But there were a couple seconds of silence before I heard loud footfalls or footsteps as someone started running through the bottom of my house. The bottom floor of my house. Wait, what? I'm gonna read that again. I set my phone aside and called out my friend's name. There were a couple of seconds of silence before I heard loud footsteps as someone started running through the bottom floor of my house. Oh my goodness. I leapt out of bed and ran to the closet. They were already up the stairs by the time I had opened the door and stepped inside. No, sir. That house had 3 rooms upstairs, 2 bedrooms on either side of the hallway, the one I was in and a spare, and a bathroom at the end. The bathroom doors were both closed, the bedroom doors were both closed, but the bathroom door was cracked open. I heard whoever was in my house thunder down the hallway, past my door, and into the bathroom. Thank God he did. That gave me enough time to open the attic access in the ceiling of my closet and hoist myself up. I'm getting creeped out being in my car. I just had to check the freaking locks. Anyways, I had just started to lift myself up when the person ran back out of the bathroom. My feet were barely inside of the attic when my bedroom door burst open. Oh my God, this is nightmare fuel. I heard footsteps run into my room and stop. When they didn't see me in that room, they ran back to the hallway and into another room which just had boxes stacked in a corner, some weights, and a table where I painted my miniature models. I guess they decided that if someone were hiding, it would be in the bedroom because they charged back into my room and turned the light on. Oh my God. A moment later, the closet door was ripped open. Oh, I would simply pass away. I would pass away. Are you kidding me? The BALLS on these people. Okay. I was crouched in my attic, just a foot or so away from the access, so I could try to stop them if they started to climb up. Oh, from my vantage point, all I could see was from about their knee down. They were wearing dirty blue jeans with frayed cuffs and worn work boots. After a few seconds of looking in the closet, they stepped away and I heard a loud crash come from my room, followed by a scream of frustration and anger. Oh no, 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 no. That scream was the most unnerving part of the incident for me. Yeah. It reminded me far too much of my stepfather, who would scream in a similar way when he lost his temper. Oh jeez. He would eventually be put into a mental hospital for several mental disorders that resulted in erratic and violent tendencies. Jeez. The man in my house ran back down the stairs. I heard crashes and clatters as things were thrown around and furniture was knocked over. I stayed crouched in the attic. I had left my cell phone when I ran for the closet, and I wasn't certain I could climb down without him hearing. After some time, the noises stopped. I started counting slowly. When I reached 1,000, I decided it was safe enough to climb down and call the police. Oh my gosh. The first thing I noticed when I exited the closet was the intruder had flipped my bed over, I assume in an attempt to find me. That was the loud noise I had heard after he stepped away from the closet. I couldn't find my cell phone, so I went to the landline by the bed and called the police. I waited in my room until I heard them call out from downstairs. Ugh. The first floor was a mess, but I had expected that. Chairs had been knocked over, the sofa had been flipped, all the books, pictures, and knickknacks I had on my shelves were strewn across the floor. The cupboards in the kitchen had been opened, and all the boxed and canned foods had been thrown onto the ground. As far as I could tell, though, the only missing thing was a single knife out of the wooden block in my kitchen. Yikes. The police checked the house from top to bottom. They found that the side door had been forced open by something like a crowbar. They also found a few cigarette butts along my fence line, along with some foil and an empty pen tube, which the police said people often use to smoke meth. Oh Lord. So so they think that he had been watching my house for a while. I realized that he must have been out there smoking a cigarette when I got home. They collected up the evidence and told me I should stay with my family or friends that night to get that door fixed as soon as possible. I opted to just not sleep. I moved a shelf over to block the broken door and spent the next couple of hours cleaning things up. I would often go to the window with a flashlight and shine it along the fence line where the police found the cigarette butts and foil, but I didn't see anything. The next day I called to have the door fixed and motion lights installed at the back and sides of my house. I ran a phone cable up into the attic and added a landline. Oh my gosh, that's smart. I never wanted to be stuck up there without a phone again. Nothing else happened at that house though. I lived there another 3 years without incident. One more precaution I took was practicing getting out of my bed, going up to my closet, and climbing into the attic as quickly and quietly as possible. I even kept at it when I moved, except now I go into a crawl space at the back of the closet instead of the attic. I try not to think about what would have happened if I had been a bit slower getting into the attic, or if he hadn't gone into the bathroom at the end of the hall first. That is just scary Larry. I don't know what to say. That is literal nightmare fuel. Like, can you imagine hearing all of that and then like climbing into your little hidey hole and then like spectator cam, like you're just watching them just like tear through your room or your house trying to find you and like getting like progressively angrier. Oh my gosh, that is freaking terrifying. Sorry about all the planes, you guys. I don't know what's going on outside. They're on Mission Impossible. Let's move on to the next story. Okay, y'all. Next story. So this one is titled, "The One Day I Woke Up Late May Have Saved My Life." I told this story in other places, on other accounts before, but it bears repeating. One day when I was an elementary schooler, I think probably about 3rd or 4th grade, I was awoken by my mom in a rush. She had overslept, and since she always woke me up in the morning, this meant that I too overslept, and now there was just no way I was going to be ready for school early enough to get on the school bus. School started at 8 a.m., and my bus pickup time was 7 a.m., but it was already like 6:40 or something, and I was still in my pajamas and hadn't even had breakfast yet. So Mom decided that today we would just tell the bus driver to go on ahead and she would take me to school, which would give me plenty of time to get ready. So I'm sitting there at the dining room table eating breakfast, still in my pajamas, and it's now about 6:50. We hear the bus pull up about 10 minutes earlier than usual. My mom peeks her head out the door into the foggy morning and waves the bus on. She closes the door and comes back inside, but the bus doesn't pull away. There's a knock at the door, and my mom opens it to find a man in a bus driver uniform. He explains that he's a substitute driver because the regular driver called in sick. He says he knows he's a few minutes early since he wanted to get an early start on the route, since he didn't know it well. My mom explained to him that she was going to take me to school since she woke up late. He gets visibly upset and says that he can wait a few minutes since he's already running ahead of schedule. My mom insists that no, I won't be ready to go in a few minutes, and tells him to go on ahead. He seemed angry about this, but turned around and got back in the bus and left. Creepy. Red flag. I returned to eating my breakfast and still don't have my school clothes on at this point. But at 7 a.m. sharp, another bus pulls up to my house. My mom thinks this is weird and goes out to talk to them. She comes back inside looking terrified, but doesn't really say anything about it and tells me to finish getting ready for school. At the time, I didn't know what happened, but Mom would end up telling me a few years later. Oh When she went to the second bus, she found out that it was being driven by my regular bus driver, and it was full of all the other kids that are usually on the route. The other bus was empty, by the way. What? My mom asked the driver about the substitute driver and about him calling in sick. He said, "I never called in sick. There is no substitute driver on my route." What is going on? The driver immediately called dispatch in a panic and told my mom to go inside and call the police, which she did without me knowing, and report this incident. There was absolutely no one doing my driver's route that day. Whoever this was most likely a kidnapper who had targeted me. Ugh. I never heard anything about it again, not even if someone else had ended up being picked up by this mysterious fake bus driver, but chances are I had gotten on that bus. But chances are had I gotten on that bus, I would never have made it to school or back home. And if my mom hadn't overslept on that specific day, I would have been on that bus. See, this is why y'all need to make the effort to drive your kids to school. No walking, no biking, no bus driving. Drive your kids to school. If you don't have a car, walk your kids to school. No excuses. Your child's safety should come first. But I understand if people are, living in difficult situations where, that's easier said than done. But yeah, kids' safety is number one, you guys. I don't have kids myself, at least not yet. But I could not imagine. I could not imagine being a mother and dealing with a situation like that. I would be lighting buildings on fire to protect my kid. Anyways, that was a wild story. Okay, on to the next. So the title of this next story is Church in the Woods. I posted this on r/backwoodscreepy a while back on this throwaway account. My wife suggested this sub might find it interesting as well, so here it goes. I grew up in Ohio in the 70s, and me and my childhood friend Joe were outside all the time. Joe lived on a farm that bordered a pretty big forest, and my parents would drop me off in the morning and we'd stay in the woods all weekend. We'd only come out for school. We loved pretending we were frontiersmen. We'd build shelters, traps, practice making fire with sticks, the whole 9 yards. When we got to be in high school, we got this notion to pull a Stand By Me, quote unquote. That's a movie reference, by the way. This was based on the movie of the same name that had just come out. The idea was that we'd walk the railroad tracks out into the country, but instead of looking for a dead body, we'd find cool bridges to fish from and camp a little ways off the tracks. Of course, we knew this was dangerous and we'd likely be trespassing, but we were kids. We had a lot of fun. We did find beautiful rivers. We discovered bridges no one went to. We fished. We hid from trains. At night, we camped in the woods just near the tracks and made small hidden fires. Nothing bad ever happened. It was idyllic. In fact, it was so fun. We did it multiple times. Never had a problem. After high school, me and Joe went our own ways. We both left home, but always stayed in touch and always tried to coordinate visits so we'd see each other occasionally. Well, one summer in the mid-90s, it worked out that we were both in town for about a week. We'd do stuff with the family in the day. At night, we'd either catch drinks at a bar or sit outside Joe's house around a fire and talk about the old days. One night, me and Joe got to talking about our Stand By Me trips. Well, nostalgia and beer are a heck of a mix. Soon we decided to take a day, walk the rails, camp one night, and walk home. The day came. We started out early morning. We had my wife drop us off in our old spot where we used to start, right outside our hometown. She thought this was absolutely crazy and made sure to mention it. When she pulled away, Joe suggested that instead of walking the usual route, we take an opposite direction. We would take the opposite direction just to be adventurous. We knew the land well. We had a map, so I gave a what the heck, and off we went. The day went fine. It was fun and a little sad in a good way. We found a bridge and sat on the edge, smoked, and moved on. We had no fishing gear, but we both bought some canned food and other stuff. Before night started to set in, we picked a spot to camp. It was a thick forested area, trees on every side of the train track, so you felt like you were in a tunnel. We had brought small hammocks to sleep on, but before we set them up, we decided to do a little scouting of the perimeter. Now, this is what we used to do in the old days too. We'd walk the area a little bit to make sure some dude's house wasn't just over a hill and we were actually camping in their yard. We walked maybe 100 or so feet into the woods and up a small incline. We figured if we didn't see anything from the top of this short hill, we'd be fine. But when we got to the top, we saw an old building down at the bottom. About 100 yards into the woods, it was barely visible. We pondered over what to do. We both assumed it was a sugar shack or something because there didn't appear to be a clear road into it. From where we were, there didn't look to be anyone in it either. All was quiet. No movement could be seen, no lights. We decided to walk a little closer just to make sure. We came down the hill very slowly, and as we neared the building, we saw it wasn't a sugar shack at all. It was an old church. It looked like it had been abandoned for years. It was a squat, sagging building with wooden planks, were almost black from years of moss and rot. A cross still stood on the top of the place, also weathered black. None of the windows had glass and there were no doors, just open doorways. We got close enough to see inside. There were rows of pews and a built-up section in the front for a preacher to stand. We didn't go all the way in. We didn't want to. Beyond all of that, there was no sign of anyone else, no footprints, no paths, no roads. It was an abandoned church. We left immediately and went back up the hill to our spot we had picked to camp. Having a hill between us and the church made us feel a bit better, but we were still a little uneasy. We chalked it up to the natural creepiness seeing a church in the middle of the woods would elicit. Besides, at this point it was dusk, and we just decided to rig up our hammocks and to go to sleep and move on at early morning. Night set in, and as we laid in our hammocks and chit-chatted, we began to hear something in the direction of the church. Our conversation about it went a little like this. Do you hear that? What the heck is that? It sounds like people singing. And it did sound just like singing. We both slid right out of our hammocks and hunkered down, straining to hear more. We listened for a minute or two, and the singing continued, but it wasn't getting louder. Finally, we decided to creep back up the hill and see if we could spy where the sound was coming from. We could still move very quietly in the woods from the old days. It was second nature to us. The moon was barely out, but it provided enough light so it wouldn't walk right into a tree, but it was near pitch black. We didn't use flashlights as we crept slowly up the hill, and we didn't talk. When we got to the top, we saw the light in the distance. It was coming from the church, and the singing was coming from inside. Joe and I put our heads close together and had a hushed conversation that boiled down to, "Can you believe this?" The light looked to be candlelight from the way it flickered, and though we tried, we couldn't make out what was being sung. It sounded like church music, but in another language. We sat and watched for a while, trying to see who was in there, but we only saw the occasional shadows. We had no intention of getting close either. We had about a football field length between us, and we aimed to keep it that way. The singing continued for a bit, and then it stopped. After that, a booming male voice began to chant. I was already freaked out, but this voice thoroughly scared the crap out of me. It sounded like some Old Testament preacher you see in the movies, but again, it was like he was speaking in a different language because we couldn't understand a single word. Eventually, it got to where the singing male voice would say something, and then a bunch of voices would answer in song. This lasted for a while, and then they all broke into this long, sustained wail that just kept getting louder. It got so loud and so disturbing that I covered my ears. Then it stopped. Why are you still there? Why are you still there? Anyways, at this point, I was just getting ready to say, let's get the F out of here, when Joe put a hand on my shoulder and hissed, "They're coming out." We were far enough away that we couldn't make them out really, but what we could see was a line of figures walk out the open doorway, all holding hands in single file. We could see some of them had flashlights. They began to sing again, and the light from the flashlights began to move towards us and the hill. We booked it back down to our campsite, grabbed all of our stuff, and ran to the tracks. Once there, we ran down the tracks in the direction we had come from. After a few minutes, we stopped and looked back. We saw the lights coming down the hill. They were moving erratically, like whoever was holding them was shaking them. We continued to run in spurts and walk as fast as we could. We eventually stopped seeing the lights and came to a road. By our map, we knew a small town was about 15 minutes down it, and we walked there, got to a 24-hour gas station, and called my wife to come get us. My wife and other friends all just thought it was kids messing around, but I heard those voices, and they sure as heck didn't sound like kids to me. Not so sure who those people were, but it was definitely the creepiest thing that had happened to me out in the woods. Yeah. No. It sounds like a creepy cult. I don't think it was anything paranormal, obviously. But it sounds like maybe like some creepy local culty people like knew of that abandoned place and just decided to occupy it for their weird rituals. So, yeah. That's a no-go from me. Okay, you guys, we've got our last story of the video. And you guys, before I continue with this last story, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up if you guys really like this type of content. It lets me know if this is the type of stuff you guys are into, or if you'd like to see a continuation of this series. I think it'd be really fun for us to continue these whispered videos of maybe either continuing reading from this specific subreddit or reading any other subreddits that you guys might be interested in. So comment down below if there's anything in specific that you want to see, and don't forget to like the video if you guys enjoy this kind of stuff. So thank you if you've made it this far. Alright, you guys, last story. Okay guys, this one is titled, "I was hunted in Target for over an hour." Okay. Couldn't be me. Alright. Let's get into it. This was my first post. This is my first post, and although this happened back in December of 2019, I still think about it on a daily basis because it was unlike anything I had ever experienced before. I hope it offers some sort of enlightenment on what to do or not to do if you find yourself in a similar situation. Back in early December, I had ventured out to do a bit of late-night shopping. I'm a 31-year-old stay-at-home mother of 2 young children, so once my husband gets home from work, I like to take some time to myself and go shopping, take a drive, or run errands, kid-free. It was around 8:30 p.m. when I arrived at the Target I frequent. I'm by no means a paranoid or anxious individual, but I have attended several seminars in college on human trafficking and have done plenty of research on my own, learning to identify red flags and what precautions to take when out in public alone, especially at night. I carry several self-defense items on my person at all times, just in case. I parked directly in front of the store next to a cart caddy and took mental note of all the vehicles I parked nearby, just as a precaution. I was taught at an early age to always be observant of your surroundings, and being a control freak just naturally makes you that way. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary that night. and the parking lot was actually quite empty, most likely because it was a weekday. As I entered the store, I began browsing like usual, following the natural flow of the store departments, following the main aisle around. I had been browsing for only 10 to 15 minutes when I noticed a younger gentleman, mid-20s-ish. He was tall, skinny, dressed in a dirty gray two-piece sweatsuit and brown work boots. He looked over at me. I smiled and said hello, but his facial expression went blank. He looked like he may have been high or something by the look in his eyes, but he didn't seem to care for my gesture, and he quickly moved on. At first glance, there was nothing in particular that alarmed me about him, except I took notice at the fact that he was just wandering down the main aisle with no cart or basket, hands in pocket, and didn't seem to be with anyone. I continued shopping with no second thoughts, and made my way to the next department. Several minutes had passed, and that's when I noticed a second young gentleman wearing the same gray sweatsuit and similar pair of work boots. Again, no cart, no basket. He too glanced at me, then quickly darted his eyes away when he realized I was looking directly at him. I became a bit more alerted, but I still remained composed and continued browsing. Another 15 minutes or so had passed, and that's when a third older man caught my attention. And you guessed it, same gray sweatsuit and work boots with no cart, no basket, just his hands in pockets. I assumed they were in some sort of work uniform, maybe construction workers, but why weren't they walking around together, and why didn't they have any items to purchase? At this point, it was difficult to focus on browsing. I had a bad feeling about these men, and it became clear that something was a bit off. Over the next 20 minutes or so, I felt as if I had been being monitored by the three of them, as if they were all communicating my whereabouts as I continued to make my way through the store, because each department I entered, it didn't take long for me to notice one of the three men pass by whatever side aisle I happened to be in, making their presence known to me. I stayed completely vigilant while trying not to panic or allow my suspicions to overwhelm me. Something about their presence felt very heavy and dark, so I decided to test their intentions to prove I wasn't overthinking the situation, and my bad gut feeling was valid. I began picking random aisles and traveling back and forth between departments in a very unorganized and random fashion to see if the men would just continue to pass by me as frequently as they had been. With every aisle I popped into, it was just a few minutes later that one of them would make an appearance, staring me down as they passed by. It felt as if I was being surrounded by a wild animal, or hunted even. They were no longer trying to be conspicuous, which was the scariest part of it all, and everything instinctual was screaming at me to get out of there. I gripped my cart so tightly and figured that if they got too close, I would use the cart to push them away or at least create distance between us. By this point, I had been shopping for about an hour altogether, maybe a bit over, and was ready to purchase my items, but honestly, I felt too uncomfortable to continue browsing, even if I wanted to. The men had been following me all that time, and I was becoming more annoyed if anything. The store was pretty empty around us at this time, and one of the main reasons I like shopping at night, but that made this particular situation even more unsettling. Two preteen girls were wandering around by themselves, which quickly caught my attention because the men had bypassed them, making similar advances, but the girls were seemingly obvious. So I quietly got their attention and asked them to go find their parents and stay with them, trying to not freak them out. The mother in me was in full-on protection mode. I couldn't imagine having my young children with me on this night. Thank God they were home, safe and sound. As I made my way to the checkout, I noticed one of the men coming up from behind me, walking at a quicker pace this time, so I immediately stopped and turned to lock eyes with him as he approached. I will never forget the darkness in his eyes. An eerie smirk formed on his face as he nudged my shoulder, continuing to stare me down, walking backwards to hold his sinister gaze as he exited out the store. What? this man made contact with her. Oh, I had lost sight of the other two men, and I hated the uncertainty of it all. He made this message clear in that very moment. My stomach dropped and my entire body began to shake. It was a feeling I hadn't felt since I was a kid getting lost in the supermarket, a feeling of desperation. I quickly walked to the checkout, discreetly asked the cashier if I could speak to a manager, and told him what had transpired over the last hour, politely asking for a male employee to walk me to my car for them to alert their security team member. When I told the manager what happened, her face sunk as if she had already known about these men. And once I described them, she confirmed she knew who I was talking about. She expressed that several of the female employees had found the men unsettling in the past and reassured me that someone would escort me to my car. She made a report about the incident and said she would alert the authorities. I was still shaking, but I felt relieved that she believed me and showed concern for the other young female patrons in the store. She took my information, then a young male employee walked me out to my car. What I saw as I exited the store made me so sick to my stomach, solidifying all of my suspicions. A white, windowless van was parked in the lot directly behind my car, about 3 parking spaces distance between us. One of the men seated in the driver's seat, and the other 2 leaning against the side of the van facing my car, attempting to hide out of view. I mean, how cliche and obvious can you be? Your license plate might as well read Lady Snatchers. Okay, that was a good one. At that point, whatever their intent, it didn't seem pure. I pointed them out to the male employee and said, "There they are," which then prompted the men to scurry into the van and speed off out of the parking lot without hesitation. I truly don't know what would have happened if I walked to my car alone, and I'm so freaking grateful I made it home safe and sound and lived to tell my story. Over the following week, I had heard there were several abduction attempts in the shopping center parallel to that target, and I'm almost certain it was the same individuals. To the 3 matching sweatsuit creeps, let's not ever meet again. Oh my gosh. That is so incredibly creepy. Like, I shop at Target all the time. I was just there today. I shop at Target all the time, as do I'm sure many of you, but I have heard countless times of people being stalked at like Targets and Walmarts and like just like those super popular chain stores, and I'm just like, that's so wild to me because I feel like there's so many people in those stores, but in a way, I guess that's like kind of the perfect disguise for these creeps. Like, they get you in this like super crowded area where not a lot of people would notice if there's like a few weirdos lurking around. You guys, please, 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 please be safe out there. Take care of yourselves and be smart when you're out and about, okay? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, you guys. Well, that pretty much does it for tonight's video. So thank you all so much for watching. Please don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys have any suggestions for seeing more videos like this, please don't forget to comment down below. Let me know if you guys would like me to continue the Let's Not Meet series, or if there are any other subreddit forums you guys would like me to read from for any future videos. But I hope you have a wonderful day or night, and I will see you guys